This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West, outside of Village Bakery, about to gnaw down some pizza for my carb night. Anyway, we got some shit to talk about. We got the bench press to talk about. Recently horked up a video of Robert Orbis doing a bench press. Not sure how to say his last name. I'll keep working on it. Hopefully I can figure that shit out. Robert does 505 for 5 reps, and some people had some questions on it due to the commentary that I had. One of the comments I made was for him to have his knees lower than his hips, and in the video his knees are higher than his hips, and it's a little bit hard for me to demonstrate for you right now, but you can go back and watch the video and you can take a look at what he's doing. But what happens is people kind of get closed off. And what I mean by closed off, they get closed off and they start to kind of squirmy around like an ant under a magnifying glass when you're a little kid trying to burn it with the sunlight. And what I see people do is they'll lose positioning down here in the hips, and their kind of knees will come in, and they'll just get all funky, and they'll just get all out of position. And that's exactly what you want to try to avoid. So instead of doing all that, you want to try to drive with your feet. You want to try to drive your foot into the front of your shoe. If you're on your toes, that's fine. That's another way to bench press. There's more than one way to bench press. There's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there? So that's a preference. You can have your, you could have your feet up, or you could have them flat. Either way, but either way, you want to try to create like a decline-like environment. So you're going to be pushing back this way. One thing I like to do in the hole, or in the bottom of the bench press, is I like to kind of shove my knees out. And that'll just go against everything I just said about kind of folding up and looking like you're under a magnifying glass getting fried out. So try to do that the next time you bench press. Try to have your knee lower than your hip. You might have to stretch your hip flexors for 10-15 minutes. You might have to do some mobility work just to even get into that position. And I can show you guys, I can share with you guys a couple stretches that will really help you get in a better position on the bench. You're going to have to get that hip flexor stretched. You might even have to get your abdominals stretched out a little bit. But you want to try to drive your heels, drive your feet into the ground, drive your foot into the front of your shoe, trying to shove yourself that way. I've seen people even kick their legs outward completely and kind of screw things up a little bit because they're generating so much force through their legs. Somebody else had a question about how do I learn to drive with my lats? One thing you can do is put on a tremendous amount of band tension or a tremendous amount of chain weight with very little bar weight. Just as an example, I'll say, let's throw on about 200 pounds of bands. So if you normally use some mini bands, throw on 2 sets rather than 1 set. And from the bottom of the lift, rather than trying to shove the weight up and use shoulders and chest, think about the intent of this is important. The intent of this is important. If I tell you to line up straight across from Jesse Burdick and get in a 3-point stance, and you need to kick his ass and you have to get to the quarterback, what's the main thing that's going to have to happen for you to be able to do that? One of the main things is, unless you're a great football player, unless you've already had your hand down in the dirt for a couple years, you're not going to know how to kick his ass. So the main thing is just going to be to be fired up. The main thing is going to be the intent. So make sure you have that intent. Make sure you have that intention of killing shit. Make sure you have that intention of really trying to drive those weights out. And make sure you ingrain it in your head that you're trying to use your lats. The mind-muscle connection has somehow gotten lost in this whole thing. Somewhere along the lines, when people started to think about strength, they kind of lost that. They lost the mind-muscle connection. But they are very connected today as they've always been. It's always been the same shit. They've always been connected. So you got to learn to use your lats. You're going to have to try to flex out of the bottom as you come from here. Instead of just driving up and driving that elbow out, you want to try to flex your lats, push yourself into the bench, you may hear some people say, and you want to try to flare that lat out. Not necessarily the elbow. You want to try to flare the lat out, like you're doing that front bodybuilder pose I always talk about. You can do some pullover type movements. Take a lat pull down bar. Hop on a lat pull down machine, and instead of sitting, stand facing the lat pull down machine, and rather than just pulling it down this way or pulling it down this way, pull it down in this fashion all the way to your gut with a little bit of a bent elbow. Pull it all the way down into your gut. Some of these things that we're talking about, whether we're talking about your leg drive or whether we're talking about using your lats, in the end, they all end up being very similar things. It's very strange. It all has to do with positioning in the end. So if you learn to use your lats, your leg positioning and your leg drive might look okay. If you learn to use your legs, your drive from your lats may look okay. You may or may not be doing it. It's kind of hard to tell. But if you pick up at least one of these things and start to implement them and start to ingrain them in your head, then you start to pick up the other things, start to ingrain them in your head. Next thing you know, your form is spot on, or Spato, like Eric Spato. You ever see that guy's form? It's unreal. I think he just did 600 pounds for 3 reps with like 100 pounds of band tension or something crazy. If you don't know who he is, you better start to recognize. Look him up, Eric Spato. Look him up on YouTube. Guy's a savage. Anyway, that guy didn't get strong just by lifting like an idiot. And speaking of lifting like an idiot, I'm not exactly sure who to credit this to, 100%, but I think Matt Rhodes once said this. And I got this via Vincent DeCenzo. I think. I mean, I can't always remember who I run into and who I meet, what celebrity lifter I run into, or who says what. I can't remember things as well as I probably should. But I believe it was Rhodes who said that you can get to 500 pounds. Now maybe I'm thinking it's somebody else. You can get to a 500-pound bench raw just by benching whatever way you want, elbows out, whatever. But to start to bench 550 and 600 pounds, you're going to have to start to think of some other ways to bench press, because you will run into an injury. You will get hurt at some point, and you have to be very careful. And the reason that you're going to get hurt, or the reason that you'll be very susceptible to an injury, is just that overload in that front delt when your elbow is out. And also talking about that squirmy fried ant position again, where people kind of just get all funky at the bottom of the lift. They get a lot of internal rotation of the shoulder, interiorly rotated. You like that word? I can make up words. I'm Mark Bell. I can do whatever the fuck I want every once in a while. Anyway, they get too internally rotated in the shoulder, and their shoulder gets real forward. And your shoulder's forward from the bottom. What are you going to do to lock it out other than just have to lock it out in some really weird fashion where your arm is really long rather than your arm being as short as possible? I'm sweating so bad my headphones are falling off. I'm not even sure why I'm wearing these, other than the fact I was just listening to some gangster rap walking through the streets of Davis here. Anyway, hopefully that helps answer some of the questions. So you can utilize your lats better. There's a couple exercises you can do. Do that pullover type movement. That'll help a lot. Try doing dumbbell bench presses, palms facing each other, bringing it down into this range rather than way up in here. Bring it here. Press hard with the lats on every rep. Try to feel your lats, get the intent in your head, ingrain it into your head, the mind-muscle connection, the old Mike Mentzer rules, the old Joe Weider principles. Also, it's real important that you keep that knee down below the hip on a bench press. And the reason is, somebody asked why. Why is it important? The reason is it keeps your stomach up, keeps your chest up, and it keeps good position. Think about the next time you're on the bench press. Think about chest up, chest up, chest up. Think about pulling that chest up. The old powerlifters back in the old days, on the bench, on the squat, and on the deadlift, they used to yell out strong chest, big chest. One of the reasons they'd yell that out is it's real important in powerlifting to not allow that part of your body to move a whole lot. Whether you're talking about a squat, bench, or deadlift, you want to try to lock that area in, especially in the squat. You know, a lot of times people go to unrack those weights and they just start to get like this. But you see those exact same things happen in the bench press and in the deadlift. And there are some guys out there who deadlift with a rounded upper back, and that's a whole other ball game. It can be done. It has been done. It's been shown to be done with guys handling big weights, so that's a whole other animal. But mainly in the deadlift and the squat, you see it quite a bit. I'm sorry, in the squat and the bench press, you see it quite a bit. In the bench press, it's just not as recognized. So when you're working with somebody, when you're coaching somebody, when you're trying to figure out what in the F is wrong with this dude, check out their chest positioning. Make sure they're not swinging around on that thoracic spine. Some people like to lift their head up and then throw the weight up. Guess what? You still need to try to keep your chest up. And that is it from supertraining.tv. Later.